I'm Jason Drake, and this is 3 Problems with the Palm Sunday Story. Palm Sunday is a day of celebration for Christians around the world, and it, by tradition, is a week before the celebration of Easter. Easter, of course, is commemorating Jesus' resurrection, and the Palm Sunday, 1 week prior, is to commemorate this special event described in the Bible as Jesus' entry into Jerusalem. It's often called the triumphal entry. The story is recorded in all 4 of the Gospels in the Bible. But there are problems with the story. Let's get into it. The first problem is that Palm Sunday does not prove that Jesus was the Messiah. First, let me give you some background, though, and tell you about the story as it's described in the Scriptures. This is a day when Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem, but he had entered the city many times before throughout his life, even as a child, and on other occasions during his adult ministry. When he entered the city, a city that was walled like Jerusalem, there were entry gates. This occasion, however, was somehow special. As the story goes, Jesus decided he wanted to enter the city, and he told his disciples that they should go to a certain village where they will find a colt that had never been ridden, that they should untie the colt and bring it to him. He told them that if you were asked, "Why are you untying this colt?" you should answer, "The Lord has need of it." So, as the story continues, the disciples followed his instructions. They did find a colt that was not ridden or hadn't been ridden. They untied it. They were asked, and they gave the answer Jesus suggested they should. The Lord has need of it. Apparently, the owner of the colt agreed, and so they brought the colt to Jesus. Jesus got onto the colt, and as the story continues, he rode into Jerusalem. His disciples even laid their coats down on the pathway or the roadway as he and the colt passed up to the city of Jerusalem. And then it says that many of his followers would also take branches from trees and lay them down in the pathway for the colt to travel over these palm branches. And they were proclaiming a shout of celebration. And as you read the story, you can find it in Luke 19, it describes their proclamation of proclaiming Jesus as the King. Blessed is the King who is entering the city. Go ahead and read the specific words that are used in there. And then as the story sort of concludes with Jesus being confronted by certain religious leaders of the time, the Pharisees, who chided him and maybe even insisted that he make his followers be quiet. And Jesus answered, he said, "Listen, even if my followers were silent, the stones themselves would cry out." That's the story. The real significance of this story is related to the prophecies that were made regarding the coming Messiah, the Savior King that Israel had been promised and had been looking forward to for thousands of years. In the book of Daniel, an Old Testament book recorded by Daniel the prophet, we read a story in Daniel chapter 9 of when Daniel was visited by the angel Gabriel, and among other prophecies and instructions he was given, he was told in Daniel chapter 9 about the coming Messiah. And he was given instructions on how many days or I should be more specific, the exact day when that Messiah would enter Jerusalem. The exact day. Now, Daniel's prophecy was 400 years before the birth of Jesus. And the prophecy was related to the fact that at the time, Jerusalem was a pile of rubble. So here Daniel's being told that on a specific date, the city would not be in rubble, and the king, the Messiah, specifically the Messiah, would enter the city. He was told to calculate this date based on the declaration, the decree to rebuild the city. So from the date when that decree was issued, the calculation of 173,880 days would elapse and the king would enter. We know from historic records, from the Jewish records, that Nehemiah was a man who was given a declaration by the king of Persia to go back and rebuild the city. And so calculated, as the prophecy said, from the date of that declaration, 173,880 days, Jesus entered the city on exactly that day. This makes Jesus' entry very significant. But what else about this entry that makes it significant was a second prophecy. And this prophecy was recorded by Zechariah. Zechariah 9, verse 9, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and endowed with salvation, humble and unassuming, and riding on a donkey, upon a colt, the foal of a donkey." Jesus came to the city exactly as prophesied. And he was riding, as this prophecy said, this second prophecy, he was riding on a donkey, on a colt. Here's Jesus fulfilling two prophecies regarding the Messiah. Now, did Jesus' entry and deliberate choice prove him to be the Messiah? No, but it proves something even as important, maybe more important. Because there are over 300 prophecies written about the Messiah. And Jesus fulfilled, according to biblical scholars, he fulfilled every one of them. Well, but here are two, again demonstrating that Jesus claimed to be the Messiah. Now, the second problem, though, with the story of the Palm Sunday story is many people dismiss these prophecies, and especially the one about Jesus' entry into the city, because they miscalculate the days, the exact number of, when those exact number of days will occur, because they misuse or miscalculate the calendar. The calendar, of course, was not the same as we have today, and the Jewish calendar was a calendar of 360 days a year. My point, though, is that many people dismiss prophecies. They dismiss Jesus because they don't study the prophecies closely enough to understand how God foretold of himself coming to earth, the Messiah, coming to first the people of Israel, the people that he had chosen through whom he wanted to reveal himself, and that Jesus was the fulfillment of those prophecies. So Jesus entered the city on April 6th of 32 AD, according to these calculations, and biblical scholars can confirm when that date was according to these calendars. The third problem, though, with this story, the story of Palm Sunday, is what are you going to do about the claims of Jesus that he is the Messiah, that he is God come to earth? Now, many people recognize Jesus and think of him as a very enlightened person, that Jesus was a very noble and beautiful example of what life should be as a person, as a human. And yet they dismiss even Jesus' claims to be God. Some will even claim that while Jesus didn't himself claim to be God, this title of God or this assertion of him being God was attributed to him hundreds of years later. No, if you really look at the Bible, if you really read and study the Bible, you will find out what does the Bible say. Don't just accept the statements or dismissal by others. Look for yourself to see what does the Bible say. And you'll read over and over again how Jesus claimed to be God. In this story alone, not only did Jesus claim this by his entry in fulfilling these prophecies, and you might say, well, he arranged those things knowing that the prophecies were there. Yes, knowing that the prophecies were there, he claimed to be the fulfillment of them. But Jesus even used the title when he gave instructions to his disciples to go and get this colt. He used the title of Lord, is given a capital L, because the claim was that Lord was attributed to God himself. Jesus used that title, and he used that reference of himself as God many times. Read it for yourself. Once you understand what it is that Jesus was claiming, the question you need to ask yourself is, what does that mean for me? Jesus could have been, sure, he could have been a liar, and as some have said, he could have been a lunatic. But what if he was Lord? What if he is God? What if Jesus is who he claimed to be? That can make a big difference in your life.